Underwood Gallery, and we are pleased to have this young man here. Such a talented and amazing artist. So, Darwin, we can start with where are you from, and if you're not originally from Orlando, what brought you here?
Yeah, so I was born in Queens, New York. I moved to Florida, South Florida, Plymouth Pines, Fort Lauderdale area when I was like 7, something like that. Moved to a small town called Sebring. I spent my teens in there, and then I moved to Orlando in 2015. And what brought me here was pretty much like school and just the city. Yeah.
So you're currently in school right now?
Yeah, I got UCF graphic design.
Okay, graphic design. All right. So Egyptian art you studied in school. So was that your main inspiration for creating?
Yeah, so I got accepted to UCF, and the ancient Egyptian like illustrations they were fun. So that's really like inspired me to take on a simpler approach to portraiture, and so they're responsible.
What was it specifically about Egyptian art that brought you to creating these pieces for this collection, or that inspired you to even start this series in general?
Well, I always did portraits, and what I found in the ancient Egyptian, ancient Egyptian art was that like, they had a simplified way of telling stories. It was just like a blueprint for me to try to experiment in that simplistic style. And I've always been interested in Egyptian art. It's just like I feel like they never really went into detail. I was always gravitated toward it, so I just got to emulate it. And it was very inspiring.
Can you talk about your medium of choice? What do you typically lean toward as far as materials when you create?
Yeah, it's all kind of just random and what's accessible. For the wood ones, I was a part of an event, Creative City Project, Immerse Fest, and I had these 6-foot panels. And when the event was done, I kind of just had the panels, and so I cut them down, and that's how I got to the wood curved style. With canvases, it's pretty straightforward, but like with these, I'm willing to try to draw on anything, essentially. So yeah, I'll pretty much do on anything. So when it comes to like the mediums, I'm all game, and they always bring something else out of me.
Do you use just regular acrylic paint, or how do you create the depths with each piece?
Yeah, so I used to paint a lot, and I stopped painting for a while. With these pieces, these are painted with black paint marker, acrylic paint marker, so it's helped me kind of take a break from the traditional painting. I started off with color and painting. I used a lot of loose paint. So in that time, I was really trying to go for like bright colors. I only did a single face, and so I just kind of just experimented with color and how people responded to that. And I switched to black and white for simplicity, because I wasn't just doing a single face anymore. I was doing a lot of faces, and that really just kind of shaped my perspective on like how mediums can influence, your hand, your style. I haven't painted in a while, even now with this series. But to be honest with you.
What was the initial color? Was it brown and white that you moved from, and then you migrated into the black and white?
Yeah, it was brown for a while, but I think before that it was just random colors. I used loose paint from like Home Depot and stuff, and whatever colors they had, I just kind of used that limited palette to do whatever I wanted. So yeah, it went from like trying to be so colorful and so like stand out to just black and white, trying to be like more focused on the concept as opposed to.
I feel like it gives a minimalist approach when you use the black and white. Like you said, it's simple, and I feel like it's like a universal black and white over there.
It's kind of funny how people respond to that. I think like with the eye, like animals don't see forms or colors or something like that, and so I feel like everyone just can responds to black and white because it doesn't have to like match anything. So I enjoy the simplicity of it just because I used to really overthink things. But with the black and white, it kind of helped me just like chill out and just focus on line work and form.
Okay, so with the 24 months collection, are there any pieces that stand out to you more than others? I know the two that caught my eye initially are the 90s and 80s piece. Are there any stories or anything interesting that kind of sparked this specific idea?
Yeah, so with the 80s and 90s pieces, they weren't made in like a pop-up. I was actually alone, and so I was listening to music, and so the music I was listening to, I drew the artists at the time. So the 90s was it's like Tupac and Kurt Cobain and other people from the 90s that people would recognize. And I kind of wanted to do that because I wanted people to recognize this piece and the people that are there. And typically everything else is done live and at events and pop-ups and stuff. But I just didn't have people to draw, so I just did it myself, yeah.
So can we talk about how your work has kind of changed throughout the years outside of knowing that you mentioned that you moved from using color to the more simple black and white? Are there any other features in the faces that have changed along with that, or have you always kind of stuck to this style?
I definitely approached things a little differently as far as like how to start a face. Now I try to keep it consistent and the same, but I think that when it comes to trying to fit faces on there, I've approached it differently. I think that like the clouds affected me in a way that like if I make a mistake I can put a cloud. And so that's really what I think is the most different from the original ones, because when I did a single face it was just like a solid color background with just like a little symbol on the side. There weren't any clouds. I think the clouds really kind of brought something else out of me.
So the clouds outside of it, being able to kind of correct some of the things that you particularly don't care for, do they lend any other significance because they're in all of your pieces?
Yeah, the clouds are kind of like a universal symbol. Like everyone knows what a cloud is. So I don't know. I think the cloud is just a universal symbol that I think that no matter what, anyone can understand, even if they're not into art or whatever.
I also think that it evokes this kind of dreaminess to your work because we are surrounded by so many faces, and I know we initially talked about wanting it to feel a bit overwhelming, and it does feel that way. So I think the clouds also lend to some sort of just kind of other world when you're viewing all of these different faces of people that you know, some that you may not know. I also enjoy the fact that there is a sense of familiarity with all of your pieces. I feel like I can see some of your work, outside of a gallery space, and you'd be able to recognize it immediately. Do you intend to stay with that same, with the same perspective per se? Because I do enjoy the consistency of it all, because a lot of artists aren't able to recreate the same work, but it's still different. So, what are your thoughts around it? What are your thoughts around maintaining the same perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I always try to push myself. With the faces, I think it's strange how people recognize it, and I don't know. It's like people recognize it before they recognize me. So it's just like one of those things where it's like I want to change something, but the consistency is fun to know that I can create the same thing in a different way.
I know that you typically paint on canvas and wood, but we also have a few of these 3D optics here. Is this something that you're going to consistently do, or was it something that you wanted to try out?
Yeah, I mean, it was fun to do these. Like, I had these since high school, and the vases are new, and they're fun, and yeah, any medium, I think the medium's a message, so any medium I have to approach, I like to see what I can do with it outside of like the normal. Like, I can pretty much do anything, but I'd love to try different things. Like, someone was asking if I want to draw on a car, or I previously did a shipping container, and so just funky stuff like that. Yeah, I totally am down for it.
Can we talk about what you would want people to take away from your work when viewing?
Yeah, I mean, since the faces are kind of consistent and the same, a lot of people think that it's the same when it's not. And I think I want people to know to just pay attention to the artists who have like a series and who it may seem like it's the same, but it's not. Like when I popped up on the street, a lot of people don't notice, but the people who do notice are like very interested, and so they'll say things like, "Oh, I've seen you here and I've seen you there," and it looks the same, but I know it's not, or something like that. I'm like, "Thank you," you know. Yeah, I think to pay attention to what's around you and the arts is the only thing you probably take away from this, because it's like when you notice that a building is there, like a business is there, and then you never notice it until one day you notice it, and then you can't not notice it. You know what I mean? So yeah, just pay attention.
What's next for you? Do you have any events that are coming up, or anything cool that we can kind of keep an eye out for?
Yeah, I mean, I have my monthly events. Every third Friday I'm at the Nook, and every third Thursday I'm at City Arts. This is one of the biggest solo things I've done. So yeah, I'm pretty satisfied right now.
Okay, well, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure having you here. Thanks everyone for coming out, and we are going to do a quick Q&A.
Found your style by just like kind of listening to responses and feeling the vibe and kind of like, oh, okay, this is kind of like that now. I remember even a year ago you saying maybe you're kind of maybe going away from this, but you still see it happening. And even watching it, you can still see these little nuances where you're still evolving a little bit. You know, it's not the same thing. Where I feel like some people from the outside could see that it maybe looks like the same, but you can see these like little differences. Do you feel that you have something like coming up that's going to be changing with your style, or how long do you think you can kind of stick to this, or maybe still do this but also do something else?
I've responded well to this, and so they're going to always expect this, and they can have that. But for me, I think that for me, it's kind of like going backward before the faces. Before the faces, I did flamingos, which were like super colorful, like Mario World style influence, like super poppy, and like I kind of miss that. Yeah. But like when I do that, no one was gonna think that's me, and I think that's awesome. So like trying to keep this for like the people who enjoy it, and trying to like go backwards and still go forward, like, and just grow. I think is the next challenge. Yeah, the next like problem solving that I have to do. I think, like I said, I think the medium is like the thing that really influences me the most. So if I wanted to do screen prints, right, like I think that whole thing would just be a whole different, it would just throw everyone off, you know, because I've never seen that, not knowing that I've done that in the past, you know, so yeah, there's a lot of soul searching, there's a lot of that.
Do you try and do that like by yourself personally, or are you kind of just doing that live in the moment at these events, you know?
I talk to my art friends, you know, like you, about what I want to do, and I like to get their feedback on what they think I should do. I just think that's the most important thing. that I can do to grow and just get a different perspective, because I feel like the average person who is not into art wouldn't really, they would give me good advice, but they wouldn't really understand like how to approach that. You know what I mean? Obviously that's my job, but like with my creative friends, they give me a lot of input that I would never think of. You know, creatively, it's just
And you'll just find that little spark and then
Yeah.
go off on that.
inspiration. I get the most inspiration from people. So like just anyone I talk to, I love bugging them with kind of weird questions to see how they respond.
Like even when you started this style, was kind of like Keith Haring an influence, or did it kind of just evolve naturally, even without influence from the outside? Kind of like.
I met a lot of, when I moved here, I met a lot of underground artists, street artists, graffiti people, and all that stuff, and they really influenced me on how to approach things with just a marker, as opposed to like a pencil or a pen or a paintbrush. And so I think they really influenced me. Like Orlando's really creative and has that scene, so that's really, I would think it's responsible for this style. And with the ancient Egyptian thing and just trying different mediums. Yeah.
Because even when you did color, you still have that same like shape, you know, and everything. You're still using the side portrait. You still have that like Darby look to it, even in color. Like it still has that like.
Yeah, I was really focused on like flat colors, and, like clean lines. And that was like my obsession at the time. Probably still is.
It makes sense. You're studying graphic design.
Yeah, and with graphic design and all that, it just kind of just pushes that boundary. It expands like the medium of these spaces, because I just feel like we could do more than just be on a canvas. That's why I drew on glass. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about doing this more permanently somewhere? You know, like more permanent mural or
Like a wall.
Yeah, I mean,
If someone gave me the opportunity, I would. Yeah.
it's even like the container that you did that was like spray painting. That
Yeah.
was really cool.
Yeah, that was my first time doing that.
Uh-huh.
That was really a hurdle. It was fun though to play with spray paint. It was a good time.
But I love the Zen vibe, even like at So What Arts, you know, you do the whole room and then it's like, all right, time to paint it over.
Yeah.
That's it.
As long as I don't have to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fun to do like those funky like installations like that, because I just feel like normal galleries wouldn't accept that.
Yeah.
And so it's really cool when you can let me do that and I don't have to pay it, and people can get involved in it. With the cloud things are so fun for me, because you just get to, people don't want to touch the art type of thing. You know, they're like, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not an artist. I can't paint
Yeah,
it.
no, you can.
Yeah,
Pillar cloud. Yeah. So that's the shipping container and So What's and this were like probably the top 3 shows ever kind of in my life, just because it gave me freedom to do what I wanted to do.
I also think that creates an interactive experience too, which most people don't get to do when they are at a show. They don't get to interact with the art. Can't even touch it, so you just look. But when you have something like this, you allow people to be a part of what you do, and I think that's important as far as reaching people and also forming a connection between the art and the artist.
The thing I ask people like every time I draw their portrait is like, what's your creative outlet? And I get the craziest answers, but I think that like everyone's had a creative outlet before adulting, and then like we kind of forget, whatever that adulting is, whether it's kids or the job or whatever. It's like you had it once before. You were a child once, you did something, and people just forget. I love reminding them. It's kind of like the fun part when I talk to people and I do their portraits. It's just to be like, remember, you can do art. It doesn't cost much. It doesn't cost anything if you don't want it to.
Well, thank you so much, Darby. It has been a pleasure. It's been a joy, and we just look forward to having you here throughout the remainder of your exhibition and closing reception as well. I know it's going to be as amazing as the opening.
Yeah.
So I look forward to seeing you out there too. Thank you.